Well, as we continue our sermon series, Holy Moses, looking at the life and times of Moses, it kind of sounds at first this week like we're doing a rerun. We start out again with the people in the desert. Once again, they are complaining. Last week it was about food. This time it's about water. And they say pretty much the same thing they've said all the other times. Why in the world did you bring us out here? We should have just stayed in Egypt. Had plenty of food there, plenty of water there. Instead, you bring us out here to the desert to die. And once again, Moses and Aaron go to God. And once again, God is going to take care of these complainers, these whiners. He tells Moses, take your staff, you and your brother, get everybody together, go to that rock over there. Speak to the rock, water will come out of it. Everyone, even their livestock, will have plenty to drink. It'll be good. So Moses starts to do that. He and Aaron get everyone together. They gather in front of the rock. But instead of speaking to the rock the way God told him to, Moses speaks to the people. He chews them out. And then he is so angry, he grabs his staff, he hits that rock twice with it. And sure enough, water comes out of the rock. Everyone has enough to drink. Even their livestock have enough. But God was not pleased. Because Moses did not do things the way God had told him to. Moses did not get water out of the rock by speaking to the rock. He got water out of that rock by smacking that rock, by hitting it with his staff, probably as hard as he could. So God tells Moses he will not be the one to take the people of Israel to the promised land. Now when I read that, I kind of wonder about it. Maybe you do too. Why was God so mad? Why was God so upset about this? What's the big deal about it? So Moses hit the rock instead of speaking to the rock. So what? I mean, speak, hit, what difference does it make really? We still got water out of a rock, right? That's the point, isn't it? Why does it matter how he did that as long as he did it? Well, first, I think, to answer that, let's look at the difference between God's reaction to these complaints and Moses' reaction to it. When Moses and Aaron go to talk to God about this, God is pretty matter of fact, right? God just tells them, okay, here's what you do. This will take care of the problem. Just go speak to that rock. God's not angry. God's not upset. God just says, okay, we got a problem here. Let's get it solved. But what's Moses' reaction? Moses gets mad. He is frustrated. He is so tired of hearing all these complaints. All he's done for these people, all they can do is whine and gripe and complain to him. And Moses has had it. He's had enough. He chews them out. He says, here's your blankety blank water, you rebels. He goes wham, smacks that rock twice as hard as he can probably. So angry, so frustrated with these people. And we've all been there, haven't we? We've all had those moments of frustration, those moments of anger where we just feel like we have had as much as we can take. As Popeye used to say, I've had all I can stand, I can't stand no more. It can be from anything. It does not have to be people, it could be. It can be animals. My dad used to get so frustrated at the cattle sometimes. It can be machinery, you get frustrated at that too. Can be electronic equipment. That's what it is for me when I can't get the computer or the printer or the copier to do something that it's supposed to do. We just can get so angry, so upset, so totally frustrated. All we want to do is grab a big stick and just hit something with it. Just to get all that frustration out. And so we can understand why Moses got so frustrated with these people. I mean, here, all he had done, he led them out of slavery. He had led them across the Red Sea to get away from Pharaoh and his army. He had produced manna for them in the wilderness. Nobody appreciates it. Nobody ever says, thank you, Moses. He had left everything behind, including his family, to lead these people. All they do is whine and gripe and complain and demand more. I'd probably be pretty frustrated too, wouldn't you? But here's the thing. When Moses looked at all he had done for these people, what did he leave out? You probably guessed it. God. He left God out of all of this. He had forgotten about God's role in all of this. After all, was it really Moses who had led the people out of slavery? Or was it God who'd done that? Was it really Moses who had led the people across the Red Sea? Or was it God? Was it really Moses who had produced manna in the wilderness? Or was it God who had done all of these things? But what Moses did can be an incredible temptation to all of us. Moses took all these things that had happened and made them all about him. The people were complaining about him. People were demanding more from him. People did not appreciate him. People did not thank him for all the things he had done. And what Moses forgot is that he himself had not done any of this. He'd had a role to play, of course. He'd had to overcome his fears and go to Pharaoh and do all the things we've talked about in this sermon series. But Moses, by himself, could never have gotten the people of Israel out of Egypt. Moses, by himself, could never have defeated Pharaoh. Moses, by himself, could not have parted the Red Sea. Moses, by himself, certainly could not have produced manna in the wilderness out of nothing. Moses, by himself, could not have done any of these things. It was God acting through Moses who had done them. Moses had not done these things. God had done them. But how many times do we fall into that? How many times do we look at something that we've accomplished and think, I did that? How many times do we think, why don't people appreciate all the things I do for them? How many times do we make things about ourselves rather than making them about God? And maybe some of us don't, but it just seems to me that it's a very easy trap to fall into. Just really easy to think that we've done things by ourselves, rather than recognizing that it was God acting through us who did these things. And when we forget about that, it then becomes very easy to make the things we're involved in all about us, rather than making them about God. And that really is why Moses was so frustrated. It's why Moses was so angry. Because Moses had made this all about himself. He took the people's comments personally. He thought they were a challenge to his leadership, to his ability. After all, what does he say? He says, must we bring you water out of this rock? He was not upset because of the way people were treating God. Moses was upset because of the way people were treating him. He was personally offended by all of this. And he took it out on the people, and he took it out on that poor innocent rock. When you think about that, it's a kind of arrogance, really. And what's ironic about it is Moses was doing to God exactly what he thought the people were doing to him. He was complaining. He was criticizing. He was not appreciating all the things that God had done for him and through him. And that's what got him into trouble. He had tried to make this all about himself, but it really was not about Moses. It was never supposed to be. It was all about God. After all, it was God who had brought the people to this point. And it was God who was going to take the people further. When Moses and Aaron went to God, God did not get angry. God did not even make it a big deal. God's reaction is, hey, this is going to be easy. Just go talk to that rock. It'll give you all the water you need. No problem. But Moses made it all about himself and about his leadership and about his ability. Moses acted like he was the one who'd done all this stuff instead of it being done by God. And that's why God was not pleased. It was not the fact that Moses hit the rock. What were God's words? Think about it. You did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites. When he got all these complaints, Moses did not say, don't worry, God will provide. Moses did not say, it's all right, God is here, we can trust God. Moses said, must we bring you water? Moses was taking credit for doing it. Moses was not honoring God. And God was not pleased. And Moses had to suffer the consequences. It's a temptation. It's a temptation for me. It's a temptation for all of us. Maybe some of us are really good at resisting at that temptation. I hope so. I hope all of us are. But I know I'm not that good at it. It's really easy for me to get arrogant. It's really easy for me to make things about me. I have to fight it all the time. It's really easy for me to take credit for stuff as if I had done it, rather than acknowledging that it was God who did it. When you think about it, it's really an honor and a privilege to us. It's an honor for us when God decides to act through us. Because God would not have to, after all. God would not have had to act through Moses. God could have gotten the people of Israel out of Egypt without Moses' help. God is God. God can do anything. God could have done all this without Moses being in the picture at all. God gave Moses the honor and the privilege of being the one through whom that God chose it to act. And God gives us an honor and a privilege when God chooses to act through us. But we dishonor God when we don't give God the credit for that. We dishonor God when we become arrogant and make things about ourselves. We dishonor God when we take credit for the things that God does through us, rather than recognizing that it was God who has done them. God does not need our help to do anything. But a lot of times God allows us to help. God chooses to act through us. So let's recognize what a great honor that is. And when God accomplishes things through us, let's remember that it is not about us. Let's give the honor and the credit and the glory to God.